All right, Jason Mayo is back, and we're gonna be fucking serious this
Mm.
time because we might have been getting a bit of a reputation for being a little goofy.
Oh,
Um, we're not going to dig totally into Jason's full story. That is big episode 50 on Sober Dad Crew. So you can go back to that, or you can go over to Sober Curator and check out our excellent Father's Day special where we
mhm.
were super serious. We were serious about fatherhood, but we also goofed around a little bit.
I'm
And
pretty
I'll
sure
put
we got
links to all
fired.
that.
Pretty-
But why we're here, and this is going to air on September 10th, which is the day after Jason's memoir gets released.
Mm.
Tell the people the title, man.
It's called "In Case of Emergency, Break Childhood," and the subtitle is "A Gen Xer's Survival Guide to Anxiety, Addiction, and Accidental Enlightenment." You got to
So
hit all the
we
keywords.
we have established in the past we have a great deal of intersections and in common. And I got an advanced reader's copy and I'm reading it and our fucking fathers had the same model Datsun. What color was your dad's?
Oh, which one? There was the Datsun B210, which was green, and then there was the Nissan Stanza, which was yellow with like brown trim.
It was the Datsun, the two-door with the little pop windows in the back seat.
Yeah.
My dad's was yellow with black vinyl interior.
Oh
And
God.
those seats, right? Youngsters, not all cars had AC back then. And that
No.
car did not.
Had a cassette deck though.
It did. So, side funny story about that car. I think I was 12 and my brother was 14 and my parents were out. And my brother decided to teach himself how to drive. And our garage, one side, you kind of had to back out and jog a little bit.
Mm.
So he decided to back out and he bought that fender on the side of the garage.
Oh shit.
But and I love my brother, and we've dealt with all of our childhood issues together. He blamed me because
Oh,
I
of
didn't
course.
watch correctly.
Hmm.
However, my parents did not buy that as an
Yeah.
argument. Anyway, we
Well,
definitely digress there.
wait, hold on. Let's digress for one more second because cars reminded me of something else. My dad, after he got graduated from the shit cars, he wound up getting a black Mazda RX-7 with a red pinstripe, and it was the coolest freaking car ever. And my best memory of that car, and maybe worst at the same time, is I don't know. I guess I was 12, 11, or 12. We were outside his condo washing the car. That was a big thing with me and my dad is he let me wash the car with him. He had squeegees. He was very serious about washing the car. And we were listening to the radio outside the car. And we heard on, I think it was like WBAB or whatever station it was at the time, that Ozzy Osbourne had died in a plane crash. And
I
I was a
remember this.
huge Ozzy Osbourne fan, like just bought Blizzard of Oz. Like that was one of my first albums, metal albums. And later we found out that it was Randy Rhoads that died. But I just remember that moment. I guess that's my generation's like John F. Kennedy. Where were you when Randy Rhoads died? But I always associate Ozzy and Randy Rhoads. I can't think of either of them without thinking of my dad's Mazda RX-7. It's, I don't know if that's trauma or just a memory, but maybe somewhere in between.
We can take a moment to remember Ozzy, who did
Oh,
recently die and was, I think, a dad full of love and full of some flaws, but someone who appeared to fiercely love his kids. So, respect to that.
never heard a bad story about Ozzy. So just like even people that I heard stories about, like guys that auditioned for him and didn't make it, but got a personal letter from him thanking them for coming. Like he just seems like such a really really honest, just genuine guy. But yeah, God bless, love him.
All right. So, I've probably started my memoir no less than half a dozen times.
Yeah, I hear that.
So, what, what motivated you to do it?
It I don't know. I did not set out to write a memoir. I mean, I've probably written, I'd say, over 300 posts, blog posts in my life, from 2008 until now. So I've always been a short form guy, and I've always wrote Um, it's not really like op-ed or anything. It's always just anecdotes and stories, personal things. So it was almost like a memoir in progress over the years. And I have been very inspired last 2.5 years because of my career change. See episode 50. And just like everything in my life revolves around recovery, my personal recovery, my work recovery, all that stuff. But I started writing that Sober Not Subtle blog, which started as another blog called If It Hurts, It Helps. And that blog was really about me and my experience being sober. And it wasn't but like 3 or 4 months that I was like, I don't want to fucking hear myself talk anymore. So turned into Sober Not Subtle. Now a lot of people write for it. But that was like what got me really inspired to write again. And I was cleaning out one of my Google Drives and I found a document that just said sober story. And I was like, huh. I was like, I don't know what this is. It could be a lot of things. And I opened it and it was 15 pages from the time my parents got divorced until the second I got sober, walked into my first meeting. And what it was the first A sponsor I ever had. Fucking awesome dude, Mohawk, skater, a little younger than me, no kids, no nothing, but he started the steps with me and he was a very spiritual guy. And we were sitting down in a bagel store in Manhattan after a meeting. And he said, part of this first step, I want you to write out your drinking history. Okay. So he probably thought it was going to be some bullet points and a couple, pieces of paper in a journal, but I wrote it like a book because I love to write. And I opened it and I was like, I hadn't read it in 13 years. All right. And it sliced open every scab that I had, all the shame, the embarrassment, the guilt. It was like, first of all, I was like, thank God I remember my story because this is what I still tell people today if I'm speaking at a meeting or something. But the details in it were like, I hadn't remembered some of those details. And I don't know why, but I was like, I need to just keep writing because it was so formatted already like a story. It could have been like a few chapters in a book that I just started taking the sections of the 15 pages and breaking them out into longer portions of what those paragraphs were. And still wasn't planning on writing a memoir. But then I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can get to 10,000 words. Have never done that before. And then I was like, let me see if I can get to 20,000 words. And then 30, and then 40, and then 50, and then 60. And then ChatGPT was like, you have a nice size memoir. And I was like, so it wasn't on purpose. But once I started getting into it, it was definitely with intention. So yeah, thank God for my first sponsor because I never would have even thought to do it if it wasn't for that piece of paper, I would have been too scared to start. It would have been too overwhelming to think about.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of what's like catches me is like, where do you start? Like, what's the structure?
Right.
You know, and I guess having enough confidence that you can present things in an interesting way. Like I read a lot of memoirs and then sometimes I'm like, I'm just kind of boring. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like it doesn't feel like there's that much, but probably if I just started going, there would be, but it's tricky too. It's like, what do you leave in? What do you leave out?
Right.
You don't have to tell us what you left out, but were there things you're just like, that can't go there?
Well, there were things that okay, so nobody read it at first. I think I sent it to um, my friend Amy and my brother. Okay, my friend Amy is a writer, and I always say she's like a much better writer than I am. I just love reading her stuff. It's so honest and vulnerable. She writes about mental health and stuff. So I sent it to her, and I sent it to my brother. So they kind of knew what was going on. It's like, and as I went, there were things that I started to write about. And when my wife read the memoir, it was almost done when she read it. She loved it, but she cried and she's like, "You lied to me for 18 years." Because there were things, even though
Yeah.
I'm truthful with my wife and she knows that I'm sober, I've never really told her, like she's never been to an AA meeting where I spoke. So I never really got into the detail. So she didn't really know to the extent about the pills or Coke or the depression. Like, she didn't know that I wanted to kill myself. Like, I just never talked about it with her. So there were a couple of things that I actually asked her if she would mind if I wrote about. And she said, absolutely not. And, you know, it- when I'm writing it, it's like the book could have been twice as long. But, what I do when I write my short form is I just do stream of consciousness. Like, I don't worry about grammar. I don't worry about extra words. I don't worry about if it sounds great. I just have to get it out because I want certain keywords and certain things that I'm thinking in my head. But when I go back, I always cut it in half because I'm like, what's important to the story? Like, the people that are reading it don't know this person that you're talking about. Just because it's a funny story to you or it's important to you doesn't necessarily means it makes sense to the story. And there were a couple of things that were very private for us, that had happened in the past. And she was like, you can't write about that. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to write about that. Just because it's interesting to me and juicy and, like, raw, it doesn't mean that it needs to be said.
Right, didn't carry the story.
Yeah. So, yeah, and, I have a friend, he's probably gonna listen to this, but he he's my best friend in the world, right? Like, I've known him since I've been 0. He's actually my cousin, but we're best friends. He's a huge part of my story, but he's not in the memoir. He's in one part, but not by name, right? And he's reading it and he's like, "Am I in part 2 or 3?" And I'm
Did
like,
you change my fucking name?
yeah, I'm like, "Not really, man." And I'm like, "'Cause most of the times were good times." And he's like, "What about that time I pissed on your uncle's wall in his apartment?" I'm like, "That was fucked up, but it doesn't
It
need
may
to
be
be in the
funny.
memoir." Yeah, it doesn't need to be in the memoir. So, yeah, there was tons of shit that almost made it in, but I just there was just no reason for it, you know?
And you really followed that structure from the first thing, or
Wow,
did you
you really do
kinda
have questions, don't you?
I do.
This is making me I feel like I'm on, like, 60
Yes, I
Minutes or
told you we're
something.
being serious this time.
I don't know if I like this.
Okay, well, we can
It's
fuck around too,
it's
but
making me nervous.
yeah,
Alright,
I have some other light questions, but
okay.
so that, from their sponsor, that really did give you the structure.
Yeah, because so, like, I was thinking about on the audiobook, eventually, I'll put that in the audiobook, I'll read that at the end just to because I talk about it in the preface. But, it really does start to paint the picture, and if you take the 15 pages, there were probably, like, 15 chapters, but just, like, half-page chapters, you know? So I was able to expand, and, I'll tell you, writing is very different from talking. Okay. Like, I've been in therapy my whole life. You know how therapy is. And, I've talked to sponsors and I've talked to friends and, I've talked about a lot of stuff, but this is the analogy that I like to say, right? So, were you a CD guy?
Yeah, and tapes.
Okay. How many CDs did you think you had? Maybe.
I mean, hundreds.
Okay. So I had like 800 CDs and I still have it out there. And I had one of those huge big pieces of CD furniture that, like, you put all and then you turn them around and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
right. So all right. So picture that, right? And when you wanted to listen to CDs, you'd have your 5 disc changer or whatever it was. You'd go and every time you would, like, pick out the CD and it was always different, like always a different mix. Now you listen to Spotify. And I don't know about you, but I listen to the same fucking 5 things over and over again because I can't remember anything that I used to listen to. So, for me, talking is like listening to Spotify, right? You can only access certain things that are on your mind or certain but when you're writing, everything comes back to you. Like, the details that came back to me were things I hadn't thought about in probably 30 years. And, that was the beauty of writing and expanding and, all the things that came in between. Cause I'm like, holy shit, I remember that. That can go right here, you know? So I'm always a person that says, I don't remember anything from my childhood. I've always said that. And I started writing and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that, you know?
Well, I imagine you think about how it intersects in your larger story. Right now that you're an adult and you're sober, you can go back. Like I go back to this family gathering we had, and one of my ex uncles, who will remain nameless for this, who I never really liked, but he had stormed through. He was, he was drunk and he had hit my mom. Was one of three, the youngest of three. This was the husband of the middle. Um, Hit the oldest and stormed through. My grandfather was reading to all of us. And I'm such a conflict averse person. And I finally realized like that was the moment
Hmm.
I became conflict averse.
Right.
Right. So you have those events and you're like, oh, right. Now that I'm unpacking this,
Mm-hmm.
I see the moment that that was created. And right, that was the 1970s.
Yeah.
And so no one like checked in with us about it. Right. And
No.
my parents were amazing, and but no one was really like, "How was that for you?" Like, I'm sure it was scary. There was none of that. Like, like the mental health side of parenting was thin back then.
Yeah, it was therapy was either for intellectuals that laid on a couch, talking to some dude with a pipe, or maybe like single moms that just got divorced. That was like the two demos for therapy back then. I mean, it's way more accessible now, but um, I get what you're saying. Trauma, and the book deals a lot with childhood trauma. I think it's way more, I think, of a mental health book than it is an addiction book, because I always say like my mental health had a drinking problem, right?
Yeah.
And mental health is also the gateway drug, right, to substance use disorder.
Yeah. My
And
wife, the therapist, says, right, trauma is the gateway drug.
it really is. And the thing is, like, so when I found recovery and I was doing like step work, my 12-step program, I realized by doing like a fourth step, I saw patterns in all these people in all my relationships over and over and over again and they were girlfriends, relatives, close friends, people at work, like the same patterns of distancing myself or running away if there was, something that was too difficult for me. And that was great because I noticed all those patterns, right? But when I never actually unpacked why that was happening. And, interestingly enough, I never really talked about my childhood in therapy. I really didn't, you know? So writing the book was really honestly the first time in my life that I actually started thinking about the childhood and what it did to me and how it shaped me as a human being. And it led to conversations with my mom and led to conversations with my dad and my brother, like conversations I never thought we would all have, and which was beautiful. But I did a lot of crying. Like there's not one time I sat down in front of the computer that I didn't cry my ass off, like really cry, not just like like snot. And I was fucked up for like 8 months, just not feeling like myself, Um, so childhood trauma is something that you know, I think most people feel guilty about, like, calling certain things trauma. Like, my parents got divorced, that's trauma. You always think of, like, a vet coming home with his legs blown off or, victims of domestic violence, and you're like, "Wow, that's legit trauma," but my parents got divorced, But it fucked me up.
Right. I mean, there's probably a, like a weight scale of trauma, right? But in the
Mm,
end, trauma is whatever derails you,
yes.
right? What throws you off your trajectory and like leads you to try and not have to deal. Most people don't want to deal with it, right? It's a rare person who said, "Whoop, that was some trauma. I better deal with it now."
Yeah.
No, like you drink or there's so many ways that people find to fill the void, and this is a note to people like early in sobriety. And I think why often they tell people like don't date early in sobriety because
Right.
all you're really going to do is you're going to start hooking up
Yeah.
and you're going to use that as like the new thing
Yeah.
or gamble or whatever it is. There's a lot of ways to get that dopamine rush that's not, quote unquote, a substance.
Yeah. For me, trauma wasn't just like a bad patch, you know? It was an event. Like literally the night that my parents told me and my brother they were separating. Like I describe it vividly, and it's funny because my mom, when she read the book, she's like, "There are a couple of things that, you know, that happened, but like not exactly the way." And I was like, "Oh no!" Like, was I like really off? And she's like, "When we told you we were getting divorced, you weren't on the couch. You actually were sitting on the floor, cross-legged." And I was like, "Oh," you know,
Okay. Small
but
detail.
everything else was like, but that night when I shut down. And that was it. Like, it didn't take a week of, like, dealing with like, I shut down, and every relationship I ever had after that, including my wife, I would just when things got too real, I would turn away and run because I didn't wanna be disappointed again, and I won't mention names even 'cause every name and place in the book has changed completely, but, I had an ex-girlfriend from college that I dated for almost a couple years, like, she was awesome, and we still talk every once in a while, and she read the book, she was one of the early readers, and we got into this whole texting thing, she's like, "It all makes sense now," she's like, "I totally get it," and it's been nice talking to people that see and make the connection now, and it's not sometimes nothing bad, but like, "Oh, this is why, this happens with Jay, like, this is why he's like this," it's not me, it's just him, so it's it's opened up a lot of conversation that I never thought I would have, and it's all been really, really good, It's all been really, really good.
I mean, it's super cool. I mean, especially the family conversations, right? Like my mom died like a month ago, after 10 years of Alzheimer's, just fucking shit.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't think there was much left unsaid, and I said stuff before, I don't know what she took in, but I said the things I needed to say but you just never know, right? If you just leave stuff hanging out there in the world,
Yeah.
like you don't have to write a memoir to
Yeah.
try and circle up with people. Like I
Right.
get it's like hard or scary or whatever, but I think the benefit is there. And if you wait, you just never know. Life is short and it goes fast, and all of a sudden you wake up and your parents are old, and if you haven't dealt with stuff or tried to have some of those hard conversations, it might be
Yeah.
too late.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and again, that's why, unintentionally having conversations about the book with people that are close to me is really helpful because I'm a great listener when it comes to, like, my friends and coworkers and family. I'm always there to listen, and I'm always there as that guy, but very rarely will I start a conversation about myself and anything with substance. Like, we can talk about stuff with substance, and I can throw my shit in there, but I would never be like, "Hey, I'm really depressed right now, and I feel like killing myself." Like, I would never say that to anyone. You know? Even now, I would have a hard time saying it to anybody but my therapist maybe? So, yeah, I mean, it's something regret is a fucked up thing? Resentments, all the R's. Resentments is a fucked up thing, regret is a fucked up thing, it's because you hang on to it. It never goes away because you can't change it? It's so I'm glad you said all that stuff to your mom,
Yeah,
for you?
and some of that conversation was too like it's okay to go now,
Yeah.
like it's okay.
Yeah.
You were amazing mom. Like you don't have to stick around for us. Like you can go out into the universe or
Y
wherever you go. I haven't figured that out, but like you don't have to fight anymore for us. Like we got it, you know?
Right. And you know what? That is such a privileged conversation to have with someone. Um, some of the most vulnerable moments and some of the most privileged conversations I've had were with my one of my best friends that died, and it's in the book. And just being sober and dealing with him having cancer for almost 5 years, and at the end, 120 pounds, brain surgery, an eye patch, like literally looking like a skeleton, and just being in the hospital with him, like holding his hand and listening to him talk about how he saw his aunt when he closed his eyes, his aunt that died, and please, like, make sure my son's okay. And then he said, don't make sure my wife doesn't fuck anybody in the first year, like, he's because he's a funny guy. But just being able to like have that conversation with somebody is such a special thing. So I can imagine to be able to like say that to your mom when she's most vulnerable, even if she might not have known it, is in a way, it almost makes it easier to say those things to me, because there is that moment where you're like, this is might be the last time I say this. Like I can't not, you know, it's heavy.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting because I like went up, to be with my dad right afterwards, and then the rest of the family got there. But we just had my dad and I pretty quiet,
Yeah. Yeah.
like two quiet dudes. Um, but I was like grateful for being there, and it was almost 2 weeks later when I was almost home that I just was. And because of like I was driving by myself because we all ended up coming at different times in different cars, I just lost it.
Yeah.
Like burning like eyes trying I'm trying to drive. I'm like, Jesus, I'm like 30 minutes from home. Can I just like fucking get home and
Yeah.
like unpack? But like mostly, and I think, she was 85. I had expected this crazy crisis at the end, and she literally, her 85th birthday was July 13th
Hmm.
and went to sleep that night and passed away the morning of July 14th.
Wow.
No, like it was best case scenario for someone 10 years into dementia. So now mostly I'm just grateful, for that she was my mom and all that she taught me. Like, I mean, I talk a lot about gratitude on the podcast. It's just, to me, it's such a fundamental, like, way, personal philosophy, right? To try and live with gratitude.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like hard to lose your mom. But in that scenario, because she was old and all that, like finding the gratitude has really helped.
Yeah. And I know that feeling of being in the car and losing my shit, that's happened to
It's
me
like
many
impaired
times.
driving, emotionally impaired driving.
It is. When that happens to you, just do you let it go or you call someone?
I just, well, like, I let it go. I mean, I knew I needed it. The first week of that was like death certificates and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like becomes bureaucratic really quickly. And, we got the proof of the death certificate, which identified my dad as the souse and not the spouse, which was actually really funny,
Oh god.
like
Yeah.
of all the things. But, so then you're sending it back and then you're like, but it's delaying the cremation. It's just all this stuff,
Yeah.
but it like, wow, this thing became about like death certificates and banks and
Right.
notaries and all this stuff really fast, which is so you kind of get in that like mode.
Right.
There's like a lot of storytelling. Like my dad like told some stories I hadn't heard, which was cool. I'm like, how do like I'm almost 55. Like, how do I not know these
Yeah.
stories? And they sort of like, you know, came out, or, him telling again how they had met, which was cool. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's made for an interesting summer.
Yeah. And just lastly, like because I keep thinking about you crying in your car, and isn't it amazing how the pain catches up eventually? You
Can't
know,
outrun that shit.
you can't. And I feel like we're alike like that. Like we probably keep some stuff in when we should be not keeping it
Little
in.
bit.
And
I've been known to maybe stare at the floor.
yeah, and I'm the same way with confrontation too. Like I have 2 daughters and my wife, and they love, well, that's not true. One daughter and my wife love mixing it up, and they know how to press my buttons. And I just say, like I just retreat because
Yeah.
I can't, you know. But it's the same, you know. It's like eventually it's going to catch up with you. And when I was drinking, it never did. But now that I'm not, and I can actually deal with emotions, sometimes there's just no place for it to go. And I remember when my friend died, I had been in and out of hospitals for 4 years, you know, and I hate hospitals. I was always scared to go into hospitals. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't, and I probably should have seen some people, relatives that were in the hospital that I was too scared to go see, making excuses. But I went every time. Whenever I got out of the hospital, I'd go in my car and I'd scream because I had to hold it together in front of him. But I never cried. And I just remember before he died, I had come home from the hospital one night and I was sitting on the toilet and I started hysterical crying on the toilet. It was kind of like a weird place to be, but I just lost it. Nobody was home. I was sitting on the toilet and it was the first time I had cried. And Jesus, like God knows how long. And but it had nowhere to go and it was unexpected. And sometimes that's like the best cry though. Like it's the best release because you're not really in control. It's just primal, you know? And I don't know. I just like picturing you in the car crying.
Yeah. Do you remember that
It's very
band
sweet.
Driving and Crying?
I do. I'm
So
telling you.
I'm gonna lighten it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
good
think
name.
that was a one hitter in the
Yeah.
80s.
You ever see the guy, he's funny. He's like a musician, but he does funny parody songs. But he has this segment, good band name or bad band name. And he goes through
Oh,
like 10 names and he's like, bad band name. Good. That was a good band name, I think. I don't know.
yeah. And now I understand it. I might
Hmm.
not have understood it then.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, that is a good segment, actually.
Yeah, it is.
We better stay away from it or we'll
Yeah.
go down there.
Yeah. It'll take 2 hours. No big deal. That's a sober curator thing.
Yeah.
Pop
Yeah.
culture.
We could do it. Or
We're,
we could do an episode on sober musicians or something. But
I feel like we could do whatever we want, by the way.
I know. I'm interviewing Elise in a couple weeks, so I'm excited about that.
I'm excited to listen to it.
Yeah, I think that'll be super fun.
She's a fucking trip, man. She is. I
Yeah,
describe her as a tornado. Like she literally is just everywhere. She's a force, and I
but she's
love it.
pulling the for folks who haven't checked out Sober Curator, and not just because Jason and I are affiliated. He's wearing the shirt.
Yeah, you can't
You
see
can't
it,
see
but I'm
that
wearing the
because
shirt.
it's audio only. Yeah, I keep thinking I want to do video content. And I'm like, no, I don't.
Well, your feed's a little fucked right now. Like you're a little like pixely,
Oh,
which
that's interesting.
or that could be you. I don't know.
It's maybe me. I'm like 4 feet from the modem too, so that's like pretty weird. But
Wait, you have a modem? Is that what it's still called? Or
I don't know. What do you call them? The thing on the shelf with the router where the wire comes into the
yeah,
house?
I
Isn't
think
that
it's
a
a
modem?
router. I think it's a
Router?
router. Yeah, modem
There's two.
sounds.
I thought there was the modem and the router.
Does it make a sound like the AOL sound? Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Remember that?
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Where you paid by the minute or whatever.
Yeah.
I have one more prepared question for
Okay.
you.
Yeah, let's go.
Sneakers or boots?
Well, what do you mean by boots? Like
In
construction boots, like tie up, like
I
not
don't
like
know. I was thinking recently, like I own a lot of boots. So if I
yeah.
had to answer, back when I was like the little punk, I had a pair of combat boots, I had a pair of engineer boots. I still have Doc Martens. I've got Blundstones. I wear desert boots all the time. So I would
Yeah.
say like I default to boots. And then there are the sneaker wearers in the world.
Does this answer your question?
Wow. Do you wear that on the regular? I might have to like, whoa. Yeah, we might have to do a video clip of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I'm a sneaker guy. I mean, I wear boots in the winter maybe or something like that, but
You're a functional boot wearer.
yeah, if I have an outfit, I'm like Steve Jobs or Einstein basically. I have a drawer full of like 15, 20 black t-shirts and just a ton of jeans. And then I have like 30 pairs of sneakers. So I'm definitely a sneaker guy. I love sneakers.
That's good to have the job where you can just have the simple wardrobe like that.
Yeah. I'm not even sure that's allowed, to be honest. Like, I think we're supposed to be wearing like, you know, business casual, but I feel like it's just become such my uniform that they've just let it slide.
Yeah, well, we have in m- our manual at work no exposed tattoos,
Oh,
which I don't follow. And I actually I said, can we take that out?
yeah, just wearing turtlenecks all day.
And they're like, no, no, like we don't care. It's just there in case like somebody had an offensive tattoo.
Right. Like if there
And I
was a
thought,
swastika on somebody's
yeah, I
arm,
was
they
like,
want to.
okay, but if you haven't been enforcing it before,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did have somebody wear at a photo shoot at a project we finished, a library project. And he's like, can you point with your other hand so there's fewer tattoos? And
It's
then he
so
says,
weird.
oh, was I supposed to say that? And I
Yeah.
think in life, if you ever utter the phrase, was I supposed to say that? You've answered your own question. No. And
Well,
I thought this picture is going to be 2 inches tall.
yeah.
When it's printed, no one's going to like, and I was way in the background. It was whatever. I
It's
don't
also
know.
an easy
But
Photoshop,
yeah.
probably. But
Yeah,
wait,
it's
what's
easier
an
than when we
offensive?
take out the power lines
Yeah.
next to buildings. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, which is basically was my life for 30 years in visual effects. But what's an offensive tattoo? Because I would say so there's the swastika
Right.
or
I think there's some you could agree on. Racist, sexist.
yeah, mermaid with titties showing, something like that would be offensive. I mean, it's lewd, but is it really offensive?
You know, is it a well done tattoo?
Well, if it's like a Sailor Jerry thing, like a
Yeah.
specific
Right.
style or design, you know?
Well, what was it? I don't remember. Wasn't it somebody in the Supreme Court said, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah, I guess
It's like
so.
good art or what it is pretty tricky, right? It's if you follow in a workplace, is it that which makes somebody else uncomfortable?
Right. Well, I guess you can't put that in a manual though.
Right. I mean, a
We'll
bad
know it if we
performance
see it.
review makes people feel uncomfortable, but
Yeah. We'll know it if we see it.
yeah,
That's
right.
the one pager. I have a question for you.
All right.
Sober curator. Just because I was on the meeting last week. I don't think you were on the
I was
meeting.
not. I was
I
at a
was
3v3 soccer tournament with my 13-year-old, watching, not playing.
I was not going to go for the first time because I had a sleepaway camp reunion at my house, at my cabin upstate. We do it twice a year, so I told Elise, I'm like, I can't come because I'm gonna have people over. But I was like, you know what, fuck it. If Steven's on, I want to say hello. But you weren't there, so I wound up at the meeting anyway. But are you going to be writing too, or is it mainly a podcast thing?
I'm going to be writing. Um, I'm working on a piece about my mom,
Oh, nice.
and then I'm doing a review of the new Dave Hawes album.
Okay.
He's Sober Dad. He was one of my real early ones, but he's
Mm-hmm.
got a new album coming out, I think maybe the same day as your book.
Okay.
So I've got an advanced copy of that. It's very good. So yeah, I'll be going back to more of my writing, like way back in the day. I had a music column, a weekly music column that no one's ever seen. A couple of the articles got picked up by Gannett because I wrote for the Ithaca, New York Gannett paper, but you
Right.
know,
No, I love
I
that. That's
I don't
awesome.
live in the right place to or then I didn't live in the right place to try and build a music journalism career
Yeah.
because I wasn't in Chicago or New York or whatever. But so it's fun to kind of go back to that um, form of writing because so much of what I do is like work related writing, and it's a different just a different form of things. So yeah, I'm going to do podcasting stuff and writing stuff. So
Yeah.
I figured out my first two articles.
Yeah, it's good because it's not a lot of pressure. Like the first 2 months, I think I wrote like 8 articles, but I try to hand in one a month. You know, I'm always on the writers' meeting. You learn a lot. Like Elise is a like a just a treasure trove of knowledge, especially when it comes to SEO and different types of writing styles. So I've learned a lot, but I hadn't even started my sober blog until well, actually, I probably just had started it, But I had a conversation with Elise. I just reached out to her because I was just interested in stuff that she was doing, and I found the sober curator, and it turned into me joining. But that is really what propelled the sober not subtle. Like maybe maybe even a little bit of the format too, but just the desire to write more and again, because I just was like, wow, there's a community here of sober writers, and that's great with the call. It's like, 30 people that are just unbelievable people to talk to because everybody's sober and everybody's a writer, and it's just awesome. You'll like those calls. They're my favorite time of the month for sure.
Yeah, I was hoping to be on it, and then we got the timing of the thing, and I was like, I don't know how to like sit on the sidelines
Right.
and do this call um easily, but hopefully I'll be on most of them
Right.
because I'm excited, and I think it is a good opportunity, but it's also a cool community. And when you look at the group of folks on there, like Elise has found this really like pretty broad, interesting group of people,
Definitely.
and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I become really friendly with a bunch of them. There's, and just like the whole, like the back of this shirt, you could see.
Sober, not boring.
Yeah. Sober not boy. That's,
100%.
yeah, that's basically what the site is for the most part. That's like, I don't know if it's really the motto or the tagline, but it is really sober, not boring. Just being able to like look through a site, a lifestyle site that, and it's not even just like necessarily a sober lifestyle. It's just cool things that you can do sober. I don't even look at it like a sober lifestyle site anymore. It's just happens to be sober, but the things that you can do and the things that they talk about and the articles that are written are just could be anybody could go on that site.
And I think that's like, you take my podcast. Hopefully there's just good stuff out there for just dads or
Yeah.
people, right? Like, that's why I broadened it a little bit, not just talking to dads or not just talking to men. I think there's just some interesting stories out there that are worth telling. And, like the interview I did with the head of Savage Sisters, I just wanted people to know about that fucking organization because
No,
they're
I think it's great.
badass, like I was like, you're doing just the real work, man. You are in it day to day. And like, I just want people to know about that and that they
Yeah.
can do that in their local community. Like, you can see what they do and you can figure out how to do it.
Sober Dad Crew is the brand, but that doesn't mean it can't evolve. This is actually interesting. So, like, I don't know what your demo is, but I would imagine that there are people that maybe aren't sober, but are dads that find some of these conversations really interesting. Um, and that was one thing with the book. So I had given the book to a few people before I put it out to the early readers, and one of our really good friends read it, and I was like, "What do you think?" She's like, "It's really good." She's like, "But who's going to read it?" Because she's not sober.
Right.
She's like, "I really liked it, but I don't like if you're not sober, why would you read this book?" And I was like, "That was a bummer." First of all, that
Yeah.
was like the first feedback I got, other than a couple of friends, and like, because she's like, "But because you're not a celebrity." you know and I was like, wait, just stop. I don't want to hear bad
Yeah.
feedback. But the people that have, I'd say probably 85% of the people on the early readers list are not sober. Like, it just has nothing to do with sober for them. And I've been so excited at the feedback that I've gotten from people that aren't sober, because they just see it as a story, like of a person who's vulnerable and a person who was sick, like mental health. And I think, it Matthew Perry obviously has some appeal, but it's kind of, I think it's interesting and maybe important that people read stories about normal people, like regular people that struggle, that's not like, glorified or romanticized. But the reason why I'm saying that is, Sober Dad Crew, I'm wondering if you ever had that moment where you're like, okay, Like, when do I run out of sober people? Like, how do I make this a more mainstream podcast?
You
And I
know,
think you answered the question though by talking to all these different people.
yeah, and I bounced that around. Like, is there a moment or a sub podcast, or I was just like, I'll just start putting other things on there. But when I look at my spreadsheet of like guests to come, it's probably 30 people long,
That's awesome.
and in a broader range, I mean, I did the vasectomy episode. Like, I thought, like, let's talk about that, and because I think that's just a useful thing. And think to your point about regular people, right? Like, I've had definitely one sort of famous person on there, Art Alexakis from Everclear.
Hmm.
I thought, this is it, man. It's gonna blow up,
Yeah.
right? And like, it didn't. I mean, it was super generous for him to take that time and do it.
Yeah.
But like, sort of the regular folks are the ones that actually get me like organic growth. Like, my growth over 3-ish years is like, I've been happy, right?
That's
Like,
cool.
it's not blowing up, but like, that's not realistic anyway,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like steady growth. People are finding value in it. Like, it, to me, it's sort of like my program,
Yeah.
right? Is having these conversations and with just like regular folks, and like trying to bring in things like, I just posted one from like a Buddhist minister, right? And we're having this conversation, and I didn't know this, and he's like, yeah, I like minister on death row. And so we like kind of had a sub conversation about that. I think these people are interesting, and
Yeah.
just regular people are interesting.
Yeah. And there are some
And
celebrities you could still reach out to too, I would imagine. Um,
yeah,
some that are more open than others to doing stuff like that.
yeah, I mean, my oldest, he's like, you got to get Tyler Childers on, like, which would be like great. I think he's in the middle of his album release cycle. It's probably not going to come on Sober Dad Crew, but it would be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, people have said yes. They just keep saying yes.
You should reach out to um so I it was a shot in the dark, but I threw out a DM to Todd Bridges from Different Strokes to ask him if he'd consider reading the book and maybe writing a forward. And the only reason why I did that is, well, first of all, I love that show and it's part of my childhood. And he's probably got like 20 something years sober now, and he's a dad and he streams on Twitch. He's a Fortnite streamer.
Yeah.
Really. So I've like been in the stream, I've rated his stream, I've traded DMs with him back and forth. He's a very, very nice guy, and really funny. I read his memoir, which is excellent, by the way. So I'm like, you know what? Let me reach out to Todd. And he just never answered. But he was probably like, all right, I'm not going to have these conversations anymore. But I feel like you could reach out to a guy like that who has a lot to say and get him on the podcast, because he's a dad and he's sober and he's got a fucking amazing story.
Yeah. And I've had some, like, I reached out to Fatboy Slim,
Oh,
the
nice.
DJ,
Haven't heard that in a long time.
right? And he said no.
Yeah,
He
that's
said,
okay.
thanks for reaching out. And I was like, cool. It was like nice to get an answer. And I get the publicist route, so
Yeah.
sometimes I do follow that, because like it's a little bit what I do, and I get it from when I had a music call. I'm like, depending on who it is trying to navigate that way is the right way to do it. It just can be hard
Yeah.
to do, but it's always worth a shot, because it is cool to get a variety of folks on, and I try and get a diverse you know group of people that's representative, not just like old white men like us, but really trying to like show other stories and other experiences. And I've got a dad queued up who's got a special needs kid, like
Yeah.
really trying to find those little pieces that like show like that's got to be different pressures that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so how does that intersect with like, it probably both helps you stay sober and makes it harder to stay sober. So like, let's talk about that.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it's relatable to me. That's why I said last time, I said I love having your podcast on when I'm driving, because it doesn't matter who the guest is, because if they're a dad and they're sober, I can relate. And I actually like the guests that, you know, don't have like these crazy interesting things going on the outside, let's say, but just really talk about, family or their sobriety or just being a dad or just work or whatever, like there's a lot of good things that you talk about that it doesn't have to be like fancy schmancy, it's just good conversation.
Yeah, and I think about, like I always think about your job change
Mm.
because I like admire that, you know, c- the golden handcuffs, right? Like
Yeah.
it's easy to stay in this thing that pays you a lot of money, even if it's not the best thing for you. And I'm like, right, Jason made that move,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and you get a sense of that. There's a lot of people who just like stay kind of stuck in jobs for money. And I get it. You have mortgages, you have all those things, like you need health insurance, all those bits and pieces to come together. But it's cool to be like, no, you can figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could also, yeah, it could kill you, being in a job that you're not happy at and stresses you out. I have a buddy that I met in the rooms. He's got a couple years more sober than I do, so he was one of the first people I met when I got sober, and just totally cool guy. Like a little younger than me, but he's got kids, and he's in business, and I think he's like a consultant or a salesperson. Does really really well, and but for the last 2.5 years, after my job change, it's like every time I see him, that's what we talk about because he is done. Like he just doesn't want to do it anymore, and it's just taken him so long to come around. So I was like, why don't you just take the courses, and just if you take the courses and you feel like you're moving forward, even if you don't quit your job and get another one, it feels like you're just doing something, that you want to do. And he's being interviewed at the place that I work right now, and is
Yeah.
probably going to get the job on Monday. So he's leaving. He left his life, and his wife, and he's got kids younger than me, but he's like, well, we're going to figure it out, and
Yeah.
he's
I mean,
so pumped.
you're better when you're happy.
Yeah,
I mean, I have a really deadline driven job. It's hard sometimes to be like, oh my God, like, there's an energy to it too that's can be pretty fun and like meeting the challenges, but sometimes you're like, damn, I'm just like tired today.
yeah, yeah. But that's why the podcast and sober curator and things is really important, because you need something to fill your cup outside. Because I'm sure you're creative at work, but like you're still being creative for work.
Right. I'm
There's a
being
big difference.
creative to for work to win work. And
Yeah,
that's my job.
it's different
Which
though.
it means to keep people employed, right? Like
Right.
we have to have projects so that the 40 people have jobs. So I do take that super serious because, right, like everybody has families, everyone has responsibilities, and and it's a good place to work.
Yeah.
Sometimes the deadlines are hard.
But when you talk to people about the work that you do, even though it's creative, it doesn't always say something about you creatively. Like for me, it's we would do these commercials or music videos, and all these people that I would talk to would be like, holy shit, you got the coolest fucking job. That video is so awesome. You're so creative. And I'm thinking to myself, I just got the business, and just like supervised it. Like it doesn't do anything for me, you know? And then I started streaming on Twitch, and nobody wants to watch that, which is creative for me, So but now I don't care if nobody watches or nobody reads the book or whatever. It's just, it's something that I can fulfill for myself and feel like I'm actually doing something and being true to myself. Like I couldn't do that creative stuff anymore without feeling like I was being creative. It's kind of torture. I mean, I miss
Yeah.
people, but it was kind of torture.
Well, to wrap up, back to the book, I assume you can get it anywhere you would buy a book,
Yep.
either in its physical form or its electronic form. I always like to give a shout out to the local independent bookstore. If you have one in your community, ask them to order it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, right now you can pre-order the ebook on Amazon, and then on the 9th you'll be able to order it, the paperback on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, all that stuff. And the independent bookstore is like a big deal. Like one of the things that I'm really going to try to ask from my, and I'm like asking a lot from the early readers, but it's not the time to like not ask, but
Right.
is, you know, buy a copy of the book and bring it to your favorite local bookstore. You know, I have a one sheet that I can give them, and just hand it to them. You know, that's what I'll be doing. But I have a bunch of readings, like 4 readings already scheduled around the island, so I'll post about that. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me back on again. I feel like maybe 1 or 2 more times I can get that jacket that they get on Saturday Night Live if they're on like 4 times
Oh,
or something
right.
like that.
Yeah.
You know, you got to
Maybe
make a
they'll just
jacket.
put us on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I feel like we'd be good.
Mm.
Or we're funnier than we think. We're
Yeah, I
not
don't.
as funny as we think we are.
I think it would be horrible, actually, unless
Probably.
unless somebody
I
wrote
wouldn't
for
like the
us.
camera.
Yeah, it
I'd be
was.
self-conscious.
I think we'd be funny before we went on stage. You
And
know,
then we'd just shit the bed.
I'd be too scared, man. I don't know if I could do that. Anyway, yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man, and hopefully it resonates with you, and I appreciate you being on the early readers thing
Oh,
and
absolutely. You
supporting.
know, I loved it, and congratulations
Thank you.
on getting it published. And I'll see you over at Sober Curator.
Yes, buddy.
Uh,
Yes. All
All
right,
right.
man. Thank you.
Take care. You
All
bet.
right.
Bye. Let me hit